Hey guys, this is my friend Chris Espianl,
How you guys doing?
and we're doing a movie review on 2022's The Batman, which came out this year. It's actually still in theaters as of the date of this recording. Now, I'm doing this review as part of my yearly series of Batman reviews, which is something I do at the beginning of every year. I've been doing this since 2013. Now, The Batman was co-written and directed by Matt Reeves, who also directed Cloverfield. He directed Let Me In, which was the American remake of Let the Right One In. He directed Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes. And this, of course, is based on the DC Comics character created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. But the movie also takes some plot elements from several Batman comics and graphic novels, most notably Frank Miller's Year One, Jeff Loeb's The Long Halloween, and the Earth 1 series by Jeff Johns, and to a lesser extent, I would say Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth by Grant Morrison. Now, the film is a pure reboot of the Batman franchise. This is not in continuity with the Nolan films or the DCEU movies, the Ben Affleck Batman films. It's not connected with that at all. This is completely in its own universe or timeline. Now, The Batman is set relatively early in Bruce Wayne's career as Batman. In the film, you realize that he's been doing this for maybe, I want to say, 2 or 3 years, I would say. He hasn't been doing this long, but in the film, Gotham City is being terrorized by a serial killer who calls himself the Riddler, and he's targeting certain politicians, but you find out that the Riddler's killing spree is tied into some kind of conspiracy that involves the mob, and might also involve Bruce Wayne's parents as well. Now, The Batman, I would say more so than any other Batman movie, even the Nolan films, really does try to be first and foremost a crime drama. This is really a serial killer drama / mob movie that just happens to feature Batman as the main character. And the movie even has horror elements as well. But what do you think of The Batman?
I love the movie a lot. It definitely has the horror aspect, with some of the visuals and some of the unsettling audio that came with it. The atmosphere of Gotham City was just very, very, very gritty. I'm just a sucker for 90s vibes, and if you're a 90s kid, you're definitely gonna love this. It does have that kiss to it.
They do use the song, the Nirvana song, Something in the Way. That's on the soundtrack for the movie, and it's also in a lot of the trailers for the film.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if, you're supposed to assume that he's listening to that song, or if that's just simply a song that's playing during the movie. Is he literally listening to the song at that point, or do you think?
I don't think it's something he's listening to, but it could be something he's feeling. You know what I mean? He definitely feels like he has a lot of things in his head. There's a lot of things that he has to think about, things he needs to dive into in order to, proceed. You know what I mean? There's a lot of darkness behind this movie. There's a lot of darkness behind almost every character that is involved in this movie. All type of media that Batman is, there's always a conflict. The conflict of the past, the conflict of where he's inhabiting, just his overall environment. Every single comic book dives into his environment. And his environment is what shapes him to be the way he is, as gritty as he is, the way he carries his axe. I feel like as realistic as they're trying to portray, Matt Reeves is trying to portray Batman here is, I feel like he's trying to put all the pieces together. And maybe to a sense something was in the way that he had to figure it out, So I felt like the music really fit the vibe.
Now, the film stars Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne / Batman, and more than almost any other Batman, I would say this Batman really does feel like somebody who is deeply traumatized and definitely has something wrong with him. You could argue that he's just as crazy as the Riddler to some degree, but what do you think of Robert Pattinson's Batman and Bruce Wayne?
I liked the betrayal of it. He definitely wears his environment in his skin. He's deeply disturbed, and he's deeply angered. He has a lot of regret. His death of his parents is the result of this city, as he described, is eating itself alive. You could clearly see the way that Matt Reeves portrays the city, definitely, from the gritty colors, the environment, the buildings, the scale of it, and even to the extent of what Batman influenced by accident. His portrayal of vengeance, or what he thought was a way of controlling the uncontrollable in the city, inspired other people to act their own vengeance in their own way.
And to a certain extent in the story, you kind of get the idea that the Riddler is kind of doing what he's doing because of Batman, you know?
Yeah.
Now, what do you think of Paul Dano as the Riddler?
I absolutely love him as the Riddler.
Now, I do want to point out that this version of the Riddler is a serial killer, and they very much base him off of real-life serial killer the Zodiac. Even though in real life we never actually found out who the Zodiac killer was, you could tell that they're definitely basing this version of the Riddler off of that killer. And it's interesting because the Riddler is a character who's been constantly reimagined in the comics, and it's funny if you look at a character like the Joker, you look at Jack Nicholson's Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, or Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and all three of those guys play the character very differently, but you could still say it's the same character. Whereas here, with the Riddler, you really can't say that this is the same character that Frank Gorshin played in the 60s series, or Jim Carrey played in Batman Forever.
One of the things I loved about this Riddler was, obviously, it's the games. It's the cryptic games that he leaves behind. Obviously, that's inspired by the Zodiac Killer. He left behind trails that taunted the police, that led police on a goose chase, on a red herring. And the Riddler does this, but he does what he does best. He leaves games, and he makes Commissioner Gordon and Bruce Wayne really think. I seen this in a lot in comic books, and I seen it in the animated movies, in the animated TV series. Like, you'll see Commissioner Gordon and Batman, you'll see, like, a crime scene, they're walking around, you'll let the police officers would let Batman, use his several different gadgets, gas to reveal something, some type of lighting to see something that may be hidden underneath, or Batman is forgotten as the great detective, but he is the great detective, and here they put that detective element really in there.
Yeah, more so than at least any other live action Batman movie that's came before. This really is a detective film.
Yeah. This is definitely is. In this movie, it does that. It really, really does that. Like Bruce Wayne puts all the pieces together. He doesn't have some type of high-depth technology. You know what I mean? He's really starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Christian Bale, he had the money. He was already established business person, so he already had revenue that he was able to play with multiple things. This Batman didn't have that. He had very limited technology, but he had it enough to get the job going. And
he does have those contact lenses that can record shit, which I'm pretty sure that doesn't exist yet.
No,
the same, that's an area where, okay, the film tries to be very grounded, but that does kind of border on sci-fi.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I could almost see that technology existing in another couple of years.
Yeah, that's pretty useful technology, and a pretty scary technology, because nobody can get away with anything now. You know what I mean? If we were to have that, imagine.
But to go back to Paul Dano as the Riddler, there were some moments in his performance where I felt like he was really channeling Brad Dourif as the Gemini killer from The Exorcist 3, which is another character that was loosely based on the Zodiac Killer. But there were certain moments, maybe it was the scene where he started singing, where it's like, this is reminding me a little bit of Brad Dourif from Exorcist 3.
He has that. First off, I love his dark vibe, man.
Yeah.
I love the struggling breathing in between his dialogue, and I really love his some of the videos that he left behind, like, I could see a few people being traumatized seeing that. And I don't know. Could I explain the beginning part? Not too much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, I was on edge when I first saw the beginning part, and nothing happened yet. Like, in the beginning part, you don't know who it is in the beginning. And another thing, the camera angles, the cinematography in this movie, oh man. But in the beginning part, you see one of the victims, but you see a small glimpse of a shadow behind the individual, one of the politicians that is running, one of the people running for mayor. And again, the Riddler here is targeting people who have done pretty messed up things themselves. So these people are not innocent, but you see a glimpse of this dark shadow behind, and the person's completely oblivious to it. He's keeping his eyes entertained on what he's seeing in the television. He's having a little sip of his drink, and then the tension, the music, the atmosphere, the darkness, everything combined together. I was kind of like on edge at a moment, like, what is he gonna do to this guy? He's gonna be like it didn't even feel like a Batman movie. I felt like I'm watching something like Saw, or some like murder movie, a thriller movie that this guy's gonna be ripped to pieces like in any minute. And I was on edge throughout the whole entire scene.
What do you think of Colin Farrell as the Penguin, or Oswald Cobblepot, or Ozzy Cobblepot as I think he's called in this movie?
I didn't even know it was him. I didn't even know it was him until somebody told me that. Like, after I seen the movie, I was like, him, the guy who played Bullseye. It was just.
Yeah, the makeup was really good on him.
The makeup, his accent, the mobster voice, the way he reacted. That was outstanding, man.
Yeah.
That makeup, that was outstanding. That just generally like made me love this movie even more. The aesthetics and the way he acted.
What do you think of John Turturro? I think I'm saying his name right, as Carmine Falcone, or Falcone. I've heard it pronounced both ways in different Batman media. But what do you think of him in this movie?
I really like him. First off, that's a smooth atmosphere he gives out. Like, no matter what type of scenario he's in, he feels like he's in control, and rightly so. He had everybody in his pockets. How does he not? Even when he's caught, doesn't matter to him. He has that that type of soothing voice behind his speech, but there's a violence to it, and you could just feel it with every single phrase he says. I love the way he is. I love his checkered past with Bruce Wayne's father.
Yeah.
You don't exactly know it.
And that was taken from Long Halloween.
Yeah. They give you small hints in the movie, but how much of it is true?
Yeah.
How much of it is not. But you do know somewhere down the line, these two people are aware of each other. So that kind of gave me
I liked how in this movie you get the sense that maybe Thomas Wayne wasn't the best person in the world.
Yes. Yeah, dude. Yeah. That was
kind of like how what you saw in Joker, because he was a dick in Joker. So it's like I like this like sort of interpretation of Thomas Wayne where, what if he was an asshole? What did you think of Andy Serkis as Alfred in this movie?
I think he did his thing. I think he played his role pretty good.
Yeah.
I like the back and forth dynamic. Like, you never really get a sense of the other Alfred. I mean, yes, okay, I'm sorry. You do get a sense in the Nolan movie that Alfred really didn't want Bruce Wayne to do all of this, but he was for it a lot easier.
Yeah, this Alfred, like, there's a scene in the movie where he's like, where Alfred's basically like, why are you doing this?
Yes. And this one has more of keeping the family's memory and their legacy alive. Like, you're a Wayne. Like, please, like, don't let this die off. So you could sense that he has a great love for the family.
Yeah.
Every Alfred does, but you could sense that he has such a great love that even though he's not really in the family, like he's not really blood related. That's his son. Mm-hmm. He loves Bruce Wayne, and he has such a love for Bruce Wayne's father that he doesn't want to see this new night habit destroy the one person he cares about and the legacy of people that cared about him.
What do you think of Zoe Kravitz as Selina Kyle / Catwoman? Even though I don't think they ever actually used the term Catwoman in the film, but what do you think of her in this movie?
I think her performance is good. I like their dynamic as well. I use that word so many times, but their dynamic, Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. But her performance, first off, she is exotic. She is very beautiful.
Well, she is Lisa Bonet's daughter.
Well, it shows. She's very, very fucking beautiful. I had to say that right now. I was very impressed by her figure. I was very impressed by her moves. I was very impressed by her attitude behind it. I mean, she still wanted to rob these guys. She still wanted some payback.
Yeah, one thing, and I don't know if this will be considered spoilery or not, but in the movie, a big part of Selina Kyle's motivation is she has a roommate or a friend who ends up getting abducted by the mob, and you realize that this friend of hers had some connection to one of the Riddler's victims, which is why Batman is investigating into this.
Yeah.
And I like how a lot of Selina Kyle's motivation is based on her relationship with this friend of hers, and I don't know if you picked up this vibe or not, but I kind of got the sense that maybe her and this friend of hers might have been lovers. Like maybe Selina Kyle's bi in this movie.
I mean, she has a great attachment to this person that she would go above and beyond, you know? And, I mean, even prior to that, both of them were rubbing shoulders. Well, maybe not Selina. I don't know how much of her stories are true. I mean, like, Selina is known to switching up stories, so I don't know if this movie's portraying that in a way. But her and her significant roommate, the Russian roommate, they were rubbing shoulders with the underworld. But not only just the underworld, she had knowledge of pretty much, you know.
Yeah, I do want to point out there is a revelation about Selina Kyle in the film, about a relationship she might have with Carmine Falcone.
Oh,
but
yes.
Again, as you point out, how much do we want to figure that's true or not? You know, like, I guess that's somewhat up for the viewer's interpretation, and I don't really want to give away what it is, because that is getting into some major spoilers.
She worked in this bar that she had complete visual knowledge of mayors, people politics, people of the DA, judges. She's seen everybody with gangsters, gangbangers, mafioso, criminals. Something that should never be together. Corruption at its peak, she witnessed it. So she can, you know, she knows who to rob, she knows who to get, she knows who to get to. So who knows if she's telling the truth, genuine or not. But I like the fact that we can't even tell. I like that, you know what I mean? She skips off with that knowledge, knowing, you know, whether or not, if any of it's true or not, you know.
Now, what do you think of Jim Gordon in the film, which I'm blanking on the actor's name, and I really liked the guy who plays Jim Gordon in the film, but I forgot his name, though. But what do you think of him in this movie?
I think he's a good Jim Gordon. Everybody that was complaining about him being Jim Gordon, they can relax now, you know. I feel like he played the role. Everybody in this movie did really good.
Yeah. Now,
really
one
good.
thing I really liked about Jim Gordon and Batman's relationship in the film is you could tell Jim doesn't completely trust Batman yet. And also, I like how in the film you notice how a lot of the other police officers are like, when Jim Gordon lets Batman onto the crime scene, they're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And that's how it would be in real life.
Would.
In real life, people would be like, why is this guy here?
Yeah.
And I like how the police don't trust Batman at all yet.
Yeah, some of them don't trust him, some of them fear him, some of them think he's a complete nut.
Yeah, I remember, like, in one of the first scenes where you see Batman with the police, you hear an officer outright say, freak.
The cool thing about Jim Gordon in this movie is, like you pointed out, Jim Gordon doesn't trust Batman.
At least not completely.
Not completely. But on top of that, he trusts him more than he trusts the rest of the people in his department. Because he knows, he has a gut feeling that, yes, some of the people in his department are crooked. You know what I mean? So out of anybody, he trusts Batman more than he even trusts his... And that could quite possibly be the reason why he brings Batman along. Why he made the sign to call for him. You know what I mean? That dynamic. You kind of... You feel that. As gritty as the movie is, the one thing that I thought was pretty cool was... You could get the sense that this is fairly new to Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Everything that he's doing is fairly new.
Yeah, like, there's even that scene where he tests out that, like, gadget that allows him to glide on the air.
Yes.
And he fucks up loyally when it gets caught on something and, like, he smashes into something.
He was evil. He was... When he ziplined all the way up there, and by the way, that's top-notch cinematography. Camera angles on the rope looking down on him, camera angles on the overshoot of the officers looking at him as he zip lines up, even below. So many great camera angles. That was crazy. That made my heart pump.
Yeah.
But he was double thinking before he's like, should I even jump? Like, he was like, oh shit. Like, he's really a person who's learning on the fly, literally. No pun intended. I like the fact that he's not unbeatable either. Because all these other movies, he's just untouchable. Christian Bale's Batman.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, that's...
Besides Bane. Every other guy, Joker didn't stand a chance.
That's the thing, like, with Nolan's Batman films, like, as much as people at the time praised them for being, like, oh, very realistic, it's like, you look at them now and it's like, okay, they're still very comic booky.
Yeah.
They're still very much superhero films. They're just slightly more grounded than what we've seen before.
Yeah.
This takes that one step further, I would say. It's not as reality-based, though, as Joker, which I think Joker is about as in the real world as we're ever going to get with anything Batman-related, but still takes all that grounded aspect of Batman, I think, one step further than the Nolan films did.
Yeah. He has gadgets, but he doesn't have the most advanced gadgets. He does have something that's slightly enhanced compared to some of the other tools he has. But... you could tell that this is a more grounded Batman.
Yeah.
For sure, this is definitely a grounded Batman. And a gritty one. Like, this one definitely has some emotional issues, and Robert Pattinson. Pattinson. I have to give him some credit. I don't think anybody is really talking about this, but when he viciously beats the bad guys, you could tell he's on edge, obviously. But there's this emotional... rage that he unleashes out on the criminals, but to act it and to show it, like, it really shows that he really does have rage, he really is vengeance, and he really does want to hurt people. You can physically see it in him.
I think it's funny how... I think he was a very good Bruce Wayne and Batman, but it's funny how 10 years ago... nobody would have ever thought that Robert Pattinson would be a good Batman.
Yeah.
Like, 10 years ago, Robert Pattinson as Batman would have been a joke. But now, you see, no, he's a damn good actor.
Yeah. You know what it is? A lot of people... There's a lot of people that haven't really followed him. He does pick some good, big roles, but there's some roles that may fly under the radar that not a lot of the public people are aware of. But he did play in some really damn good movies.
He was in a lot of David Cronenberg's movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in David Cronenberg's films, and he started showing up in movies like Good Time and The Lighthouse.
The naysayers, a lot of the naysayers even say we were wrong.
Yeah. You know what's funny, though, is my dad, when he found out that Robert Pattinson was playing Batman, he's like, fucking really? The Twilight guy?
Yeah, everybody said that. Like, the sparkling vampire's gonna be Batman? Shit!
I do want to point out that they are apparently developing a Penguin TV series, and I think it's going to be this Penguin. Like, I think it's going to be in the universe of this film. I don't know that for sure, but I believe they are doing that.
Oh, that would be nice. That would be great. That would be great. I haven't read the prequel book. They came out with a prequel book, but that gives Batman more details. Like it showed like a 16-year-old Bruce Wayne was the one that constructed the car. It again, like as you pointed before, with the influence of the other graphic novels. Alfred was the one that trained Bruce. This movie's really good, man. I enjoy it. I want to see it a second time. I really do.
Yeah, I've been meaning to. It's just a lot of things been going on right now, but I've been meaning to see it again. Now, to quickly wrap up my thoughts on The Batman, I thought it was an excellent movie, and I highly recommend it, especially if you are a Batman fan, but namely if you're a fan of the darker Batman, because obviously there are so many different incarnations of Batman, from the Adam West Batman to the Michael Keaton Batman to Batman the Animated Series, and Batman has gone from being kid-friendly to more adult-oriented. This I would not necessarily recommend for kids, but if you are a fan of the darker, more adult-oriented Batman, then I definitely recommend this. But I also recommend it if you're a fan of stuff like Silence of the Lambs, Seven, and even Saw. This really does kind of feel like that, only with Batman in it. Now, while the movie certainly owes a lot to The Dark Knight, and while there are some things about this movie that I liked better than The Dark Knight, I don't necessarily see this movie having the same cultural impact that The Dark Knight had, but obviously only time's going to tell. I mean, I'm sure when The Dark Knight came out, there were people who said that they didn't see that movie having the same cultural impact that the Tim Burton Batman movie had. Now, before I end this video, I just want to cut to some friends of mine giving their thoughts on The Batman. The first short review you're going to see is from my friend Matt.
Okay, so The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, John Turturro, Colin Farrell, Dano, Jeffrey Wright, among other people. It's a good movie. I liked it. I actually like this Batman movie a lot better than others. Thought it was a lot better than The Dark Knight and anything that they do, anything that Nolan did. I just think it's like up my alley more. It's just like a real Batman detective story, like how we really used to see him more in like the comics or like the cartoons, maybe more. It was still real. I liked how it was still realistic to a degree, but then there was moments where it was still comic booky and it still felt in its own universe. It still felt as if it's in its own actual world. It wasn't trying to, shove any type of like, a future reference for a future maybe a possible sequel. It wasn't really doing anything of that. I liked Robert Pattinson's take on both Batman and Bruce Wayne. I kind of liked that they went with like a younger. They went like when you see Batman as like we don't really see him too much in the movies as like a younger type of Batman. So this was it was like a breath of fresh air. And I also really liked the cinematography. I just thought everything about this movie was just very fresh for a Batman movie, especially considering how Batman's a character that's been done numerous times over the years. It's just it was interesting. And I thought Colin Farrell was great. Paul Dano was great as the Riddler. Zoe Kravitz was great as Catwoman. Jeffrey Wright was great as Commissioner Gordon. I thought the dynamic between Commissioner Gordon and Batman in this movie was a lot better depicted compared to other movies. Jeffrey Wright was just great. Everyone was great in this movie. There wasn't really any bad actors in this. Bad acting in this movie. Everyone did what they needed to do, and it just seemed effortless. And that's what I kind of liked about this movie. It was just fresh. And I'd like to also conclude by saying that it's cool that we finally have the first Batman that listens to bones.
Hello everyone, this is my reaction, my review for Christian on the new Batman film with Robert Pattinson. And holy cow, once again, just like with, before I was born, when Michael Keaton was casted as Batman, fans complained, but then when they saw the film, their minds were blown away. When Ben Affleck was cast as Batman, they were worried about that because of his performance in Daredevil, but they saw the movie was bad, but for once, he was not to blame. He was a good Batman, just poor direction and writing for Ben Affleck. And once again, Robert Pattinson, oh my god, he was just amazing. He was spectacular. He's definitely going to go down as one of the best Batman actors ever of all time. I'll admit, I only saw the first Twilight film, and I only saw him in... He was in one of the Harry Potter films, the fourth one, I think, but it's been a long time. That was like the only things I've seen him in. People gave that guy a bad rep because of Twilight, and I've heard he's a better actor than what people complain about him, and I'll admit, I haven't seen his other films, but watching this performance as Batman this movie makes me interested to see how, maybe talented he really is and how really good of an actor he is. He just really, nailed it. He was, brutal, dark, gritty, and just so, He's definitely going to become one of my new favorite Batman actors. The film definitely had a lot of, long Halloween, references, especially if you're a big diehard Batman fan. You probably would catch all the references they make to other, Batman comic books that Matt Reeves took inspiration from. And also, Paul Dano's performance as the Riddler, he was just great. Oh my god. A big upgrade compared to Jim Carrey's Riddler. No comparison. A lot more serious, a lot more sinister, and also a lot more crazy and torture and psychological. Also, his performance kind of reminded me a little bit like Kevin Spacey's character in the movie Seven. And there's also some inspirations of Silence of the Lambs and the Zodiac Killer. And I don't know why, for some reason, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, for some reason, I really enjoyed her performance a lot more than I did Anne Hathaway's. I mean, not that I'm saying Anne Hathaway was a bad Catwoman, she's just not my favorite actress to have played Catwoman. Just something about it I really enjoyed a lot. She really did a great job as Catwoman. I also, once again, love their chemistry as always in any Batman and Catwoman performance. I also like Jeffrey Rush as Commissioner Gordon. I'll admit, I honestly had no idea who he was before seeing this film. I'm not really familiar with his work, but once again, another great spectacular job from his performance as Commissioner Gordon. Also, John Turturro was great as Carmine Falcone, even though it's a little bit different than what Tom Wilkinson's character was in the Dark Knight trilogy from Christopher Nolan. But then again, John Turturro is a great actor who's done a lot of great things, and definitely never fails and always can be entertained no matter what the film is. So that was my review of The Batman. So my advice, go check it out, and I'm not going to say much more about it. You have to see it. That was my personal opinion. I will see you guys next time, and thanks a lot, Christian. On a final note, our friend Chris Maino, who recently passed away, I will say, if he was still alive, he would have loved this movie a lot.
The Batman was excellent. It's a dark, gritty crime drama that takes you into this corrupt cesspool of a city and shows you the efforts of two men to bring justice to it. They are, of course, Batman and James Gordon. Now, the first thing I loved about this movie was Batman's introduction. In the beginning, you hear his narration about what a horrible place the city is while various crimes are occurring, and during one such crime, a gang of thugs are beating up a man who just got off the subway, and I just loved the way they show Batman stepping out of the shadows in order to lay the smackdown on these thugs. I also like how this movie takes inspiration from Batman Year One and shows a Batman who's still very young and very early in his crime-fighting career. He's not as experienced, he makes mistakes, and he even scares the people he's trying to protect. I think that Robert Pattinson does an amazing job with his performance as Bruce Wayne and Batman. I really liked the low, melancholy voice he used as both Batman and Bruce Wayne. His version of Bruce Wayne is very gloomy and doesn't give off the same millionaire playboy persona that other versions of the character did. But that's okay, because I think it works well for this story. I also want to mention that Jeffrey Wright does a pretty good job as James Gordon, one of the few honest cops in the corrupt police force of Gotham City. The movie also has a great villain in Paul Dano's Riddler. He's really creepy, and I love how his voice sounds when he's behind the mask. Now, I gotta say, I remember when the first photos of him as the Riddler came out, I wasn't crazy about his new look, but over time, it's grown on me a little. And even when he's not in the mask, he's really creepy, especially during an interrogation scene between him and Batman. Throughout the movie, he targets various corrupt men of power in Gotham City, and he's very creative in his methods of both killing them and exposing their dirty little secrets. I also have to mention Colin Farrell as the Penguin. He is completely unrecognizable thanks to an expert makeup job, and I just love the accent he uses for the role. The Penguin isn't the main villain in this movie, but he's still given plenty of screen time as the bodyguard of Carmine Falcone, played by John Turturro, whom I've had the pleasure of meeting. The way the Penguin looks in this movie feels very reminiscent of his look in the Batman Arkham video games, which I think is great. About midway through the movie, there's this amazing chase scene between Batman and the Penguin, and I must say that it is quite a sight to behold. Zoe Kravitz also does an excellent job as Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman. She's very feisty and vicious at times, but also very vulnerable at other times, and I think she maintains a good balance of those things. The mystery that drives the movie is very compelling, and I really liked how it had a personal connection to Bruce. I don't want to give anything away, but I will say that he learns that his family may not have been as virtuous as he once thought. The action and fight scenes in this movie are also very well done. When Batman fights, he does so in brutal, bone-breaking fashion, which is just how I like him. I think that the fight scenes in this movie are very well choreographed, and there's a big satisfaction I get seeing Batman beat the shit out of criminals. I'll wrap it up here. I'm sure that there are a lot of things I'm forgetting, but even so, I hope you've all enjoyed my review. Take care.